Okay, so welcome everyone. Today, because we have international guests, so the entire session will be hosted in English. My name is Lei, and perhaps you know me, I'm a postdoc at the University of Vienna. And welcome to the Open Talks by the Chinese Open Science Network. So if you are just joining when entering Zoom, please remain muted and change your display name to name_affiliation_field if possible. For instance, this name, 胡川鹏 Nanjing 师范大学_social cognition. And please, on your own side, please do not record and share. And we will, upon the consent of the speakers and the presenters, we will then afterwards share it on the Chinese website called Bilibili. If you would like to search this by searching COSN_live, you will be able to find us. Or alternatively, there's a QR code you can scan, and also you could find us. And then the recording will be available usually about a week after the presentation. And if you have never heard about us, so what is the Open Talks? What is the Chinese Open Science Network? Who are we? So Open Talk is a series of online talks organized by two teams. So the Chinese Open Science Network and the CAPBS Neural Chat team. Both of them, they are grassroots organizations promoting open science in the field, particularly in psychology and cognitive science, cognitive neuroscience. We have quite a few features, but in brief, we are open to all topics relevant to open science and psychology topics, reproducibility, meta-analysis, and so on and so forth. You will hear about meta-analysis today, for example. We are open to all levels of audience and all level of speakers. And if you would like to present on our platform, so that's really, you're very welcome to do so. Our next speaker can just be you. So then let's just jump into the presentation, the talk, the share content of today. So we have today the 14th open talk already. And then the topic is about the corporation Databank, in short, the CoDa. And maybe some of you have already seen the preprint roughly a month ago on PsycArchive, and it has already received some traction from the internet and Twitter, and also we as the Chinese network, we also promoted that a little bit, so some of you have already seen that, I guess. And today it is really a great pleasure that we have two speakers here. So one is Professor Daniel Balliet, who is the director, the PI of the Amsterdam Corporation Lab, who is the head of, or the lead person, the lead scientist of the CoDa project. And then the second speaker is Jin淑娴, who is the core member of the CoDa team, who is really involved in developing the CoDa database and then a lot of the work behind it. So the talk structure will be like, in the beginning, both of Daniel and淑娴will have some brief overview, and then a much more detailed introduction and tutorial style sharing information from淑娴, and then the summary and future direction will be offered or given by Daniel, followed by the question and answers. And if you do have questions, please use either the chat or raise your hand, and you can unmute yourself and speak loud directly to the speakers. All right, so please join me in welcoming Professor Daniel Balliet and淑娴Jin. So then the floor is yours.
Thank you. So I will share my screen.
I will stop my sharing so that you will be able to do that.
Yeah, thank you. And can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Many thanks, Lei and Haiyang. And also thanks to the Open Science Group for organizing the series of open talks and for inviting us to present our work. Hello, everyone. I'm Jin淑娴, and I'm a third-year PhD in social psychology at Free University Amsterdam, under the supervision of Professor Daniel Balliet and Professor Paul van Lange. My research interest focuses on structural features of situations, interdependence, and human cooperation. And recently, I'm doing a meta-analysis to see how cooperation can be influenced by structural features of social dilemmas. And during my PhD, of course, I've also been involved in developing this multidisciplinary open access database, which is the Cooperation Databank. And this is my supervisor, Professor Daniel Balliet, the director of the Cooperation Databank. And Dan is a professor in human cooperation. He applies experiments, field studies, and meta-analysis to test evolutionary and psychological theories of cooperation. In 2015, he founded the Amsterdam Cooperation Lab, and he's also the recipient of both an ERC starting grant and an ERC consolidator grant. Thanks for being here, Dan. And today, the two of us will coordinate and introduce the Cooperation Databank together. We will present in English, but in the Q&A session, both questions in English and Chinese are welcomed because our main purpose is to exchange information and promote the communication with us, on us. So basically, we started this project 5 years ago. It was founded by the European Research Council. Our group studied cooperation, collective goods, common resources, but actually the databank itself is a public good, I would say. It can only be achieved by broad collaboration among researchers within and outside our field. We have 27 contributing members from all over the world. 5 of them are computer scientists to support us in terms of some techniques, and the rest are the domain experts in cooperation research. At the end of October this year, we finally made CoDa open to the public. To briefly describe the databank, it contains a machine-readable history of cooperation research and allow us to search and select studies for on-demand meta-analysis. In this talk, we will introduce the Cooperation Databank by answering the following 5 questions. Why did we create the databank? And what's in the databank? How it works? How did we create it? And what's the future of it? Now, Dan will bring us answers to the first question.
Well, thank you for that introduction, Shuxian, and thank you very much for this opportunity to be here and to share with us, share with you, well, this resource we created. Well, I'm sure all of you are very well aware of, well, it's been referred to as the replication crisis, or just generally, I think, social scientists, behavioral scientists, becoming aware that studies, effect sizes often were failing to replicate. And there's been really several outstanding projects, I think, that have gone past gone over past research, attempted to replicate them, and found that, well, a significant number of those studies failed to replicate. And I think several messages for us kind of fall out from these research projects. And one of those is just making us understand the value of looking across the entire body of evidence if we're going to generate a summary or conclusion about a particular effect size or phenomenon of interest. And if we want to do that, it can be actually very difficult. We as scientists tend to publish our work in PDFs, and PDFs are not very well machine readable and understood well by machines. It's actually very difficult for us to find exactly what we're looking for. So if I'm a cooperation researcher and I want to find only the set of studies that have a specific measure of cooperation or have a specific kind of variable predicting cooperation, Google Scholar will output hundreds or thousands of possible papers that I'll need to sift through to to gather all of those studies and findings. Now, computer scientists are trying to re-envision how we can publish our results in a way that can make this process more efficient and more effective. And I think there's probably several models out there of what this future can be. All of them in some way have, are thinking about translating PDFs and how we currently publish our results into something that's machine readable and standardized. One of those models is considered what's called a nano publication. And a nano publication is kind of thought to be the most smallest units of information you might extract from a PDF that would capture the kind of quantitative observations that were obtained from that study and some information about the context in which those observations were made. And it's not, I don't today want to describe to you in detail what a nano publication is per se, but what we have done has basically taken the entire body of research on cooperation using social dilemmas and translated those PDFs into a kind of nano publication, which basically extracted from the PDFs, documented all quantitative information about cooperation in those studies, how much was observed, what was the relationship a variable had in predicting cooperation, and then also information around the context in which that observation was made. And Suzanne's going to share with you the outcome of that work, but I hope it will clearly kind of demonstrate to you the value of when you take an entire body of knowledge contained in largely PDFs and translate that into something that's machine readable and standardized. And Suzanne, you can take it from here.
Thank you. Thanks, Dan. I'm considering all of the challenges and the benefits of creating this type of data bank. So our team started this project. What's in the data bank? Overall, CoDa contains an annotated history of empirical studies on human cooperation in social dilemmas. Here, I will explain a bit more about the definition of social dilemmas and cooperation. So social dilemmas are situations that involve a conflict of interest and people must choose between a behavior that is best for themselves and a behavior that is best for the collective. Cooperation is choosing to do a behavior that is best for the collective. And from the GIF, we could see that the first empirical study was conducted in 1958, and there are around 6 decades of studies on individual decision-making in social dilemmas. So we included all of them. Until now, we've searched and coded documents that were written in 3 languages, which are Chinese, English, and Japanese. We will keep including more languages, like Russian might be the next one, because there's a researcher who is a native Russian speaker and quite passionate about this project and would like to join us and lead the searching and coding for all the Russian documents in this topic. And finally, more than 2,600 studies have been coded and included in CoDa app. There are 3 prototypical social dilemmas that have been used to measure cooperation in past research, and all of them represent a situation involve a conflict of interest between individuals and the collective. And all papers included in CoDa are using these 3 paradigms. This means that in all the meta-analysis conducted using CoDa, the outcome variable is always cooperation in social dilemmas. And if you are familiar with meta-analysis, after the search and selection of studies, you might be curious about what we've coded in each study. So basically, we've coded 4 sets of variables, paper metadata like title and DOI, sample characteristics like sample size and mean age of the participants, study characteristics like type of the social dilemmas and repetition of interactions when participants are playing the social dilemmas. And also the most important quantitative results like cooperation rates, mean contributions, and the standard deviation, and also different types of effect sizes. Apart from those coded variables, we also annotated all the independent variables that predict cooperation and provide a knowledge graph here, which is the conceptualization of this domain. We also call it ontology. So we do this because in past research, so many variables have been studied to predict cooperation. For example, as you can see from the slide, personality, punishment, reward, emotions, and so on. And now we kind of put everything together in the same data bank with so many IVs, either measured or manipulated. So to allow people to do meta-analysis on their interested research topics, the selection of studies should be performed based on clear definitions and classifications of all these independent variables. So what we've done is to define the classes across these concepts, across these independent variables, and arrange the classes and make it hierarchical, and then define the relationships between the classes, and to define the instances belonging to each class. So for this part, we will move to the CoDa application later to see how it looks like. But actually one of the benefits here is that the ontologies are expressed in a machine readable format, which can be shared using a content-specific language. Well, after knowing what's in the data bank, so we now move to the functions that CoDa can achieve. For example, search the literature, visualize trends in the literature, analyze the literature, and use linked data to discover even more. Of course, I explore the concepts used in cooperation research. And to give you a more straightforward information and details, let's move to the CoDa app. Well, here is an overview of all the studies that has been included in the Cooperation Data Bank. You can see number of papers, studies, effect sizes, and the total participants within all these studies. And users can also view all the studies by country, region, or year of data collection, and the sample size. Here, we provide a place for people to select their own studies and to conduct their own meta-analysis. You could use one of our selection examples here to see how it works, or to make your own selection based on the variables you selected. So here you could see the classes of independent variables already. First, you may want to choose a generic IV. Here are a list of variables. Maybe we can select personality because, well, we are more familiar with this one. And after that, we can specify, like we are interested in individual differences, and the definition of individual differences will be presented here. And then there are different values within individual differences. And you could choose probably one of them for your own meta-analysis. And here, after your selection, you could explore all the studies that has been selected and download the reference and raw data set to run meta-analysis offline. Here, we will just select the first example here to analyze the relationship between honesty, humility, and cooperation. After the selection, all the data here will be updated, and then we can move to the meta-analysis. Well, to explore the correlation between honesty, humility, and cooperation, we may select effective size correlation coefficient. And here we can specify a model, either fixed effect model or random effect, and with multiple choices within the random effect model estimator. This is the default one, so we will just use the restricted maximum likelihood estimator. And here is the meta-analysis results, and also the raw output from R using Matfer package. We also offered two options of visualization, which is forest plot and violin plot, to explore the distribution of all the effective sizes. And of course, you can download the data table here. We also offer users to explore the publication biases and to give a Funo plot. Finally, here's an option for us to do the power analysis for any future research that you are interested in, based on the overall effective size estimated here. So you can decide how many participants to recruit in your future research. The option of meta-regression is, well, basically similar to what we've seen in meta-analysis, but the main difference is we use the dependent variable we use in the model is different. So in the meta-analysis, we use either correlation coefficient or standardized mean difference. But here we use the cooperation rates as our dependent variable in a meta-regression model. And the structure is similar. We could also have the visualization and download the data table here. And here, yeah, we could include moderators to our meta-regression model. And also we have this option in the meta-analysis. We can select some variable relevant models and also study characteristics we've coded for all the studies. And if you want to run a multi-level model, here are three options for you to include as clusters, which is the study, paper, and country. Here, we also offered a list of indicators, which is from country level. And these variables has been hypothesized and studied to predict cooperation. So you can also include this to see whether it affects the results when you run a meta-regression. Well, here should be the citation explorer, but Dan, do you know what's happening here?
Oh, you might have to refresh the browser, possibly, just to...
Okay.
No, I don't. You can...
Oh, here. Yeah, I can see it just now. So here we offered a citation explorer. This is the network below shows the papers and their citations. And the larger nodes here are like, means more highly cited papers, and the links are the citation. And we can see different colors here. And currently, with the option community, we kind of color the network by the community. And if you choose type of social dilemmas, the color will change. And you can basically see, yeah, which studies use the public use dilemma game and which use the business dilemma game. And of course, there are other options like to explore the country of the study and also the variable of observations. Users can also design their own citation explorer by filtering the year of publication in each study. And here we have a list of study IDs, and by click on each one, you can find a specific paper, like where it is in the whole citation network. Now we move to the ontology overview. As has been introduced in the slide before, we have a graph, a knowledge graph here, which basically represents all the variables that has been studied in past research to predict cooperation. And actually, the outer circle means that it is the generic independent variable that predict cooperation. And within them, there are different categorizations. The size of the bubble indicates how many treatments were annotated within with the independent variable, which means that if the bubble is bigger than it means in the past research, this variable has been studied more often and more frequently. We can see here, if we zoom into the communication, there are 3 subclasses, which is communication type, occurrence, and contents. And we have 3 types of communication type. And we can also view the definition of the written communication here on the bottom of this window. Apart from the graph, we also provided a table with all the IVs in details. We named the generic independent variables and the subclasses of it, and also the description and definition of each variable, and also the values within each independent variables. And if you are interested in a specific one, you can simply search it here, and then we will get all the information. Communication, yeah. And we will see everything about communication here. So these are all the functions that our CoDa app can achieve. And now we can simply click the tutorials or the website to move to our Cooperation Data Bank website. Here are a lot of information about the Cooperation Data Bank. And especially in the tutorial part, we have, so Dan has recorded many videos to introduce each of the function. And if you want to know more about them, please come here, visit our website and to watch the videos. Of course, you can contact our team by send messages to us. Here, we can quickly go through the process of creating the Cooperation Data Bank. So first, we performed the systematic search for studies, and then came the semantic modeling and annotation of the studies. And personally, I joined the group like 2 years ago and started to work on the coding and annotation. So for both English documents and some of the Chinese documents. And next, our team calculated effect sizes, created data sets in standardized machine readable format, and developed the R Shiny web app, which is the CoDa app we've just seen. For more information about the Cooperation Data Bank, here is a link of our preprint, which is currently under consideration. Here are some meta-analytic projects that use part of the data in CoDa, like, well, this one, personality and prosocial behavior, a theoretical framework and meta-analysis. So this has already been published in Psychological Bulletin this year. And there are also some ongoing projects. All of them are meta-analysis, of course, like the cross-societal variation in cooperation, structural influences on cooperation, and the trends of cooperation levels over time in the US. Each of them is led by the contributing members in the CoDa team. But actually, we are very looking forward to more collaborations with researchers outside our team or even outside our research field. So Professor Zhang Yuchen is a researcher in management at Hebei University of Technology. He is now leading a project using data in CoDa to perform replication tests of human cooperation research in social dilemmas. So we really hope that people who are currently sitting in front of the screen and listening to the talk will be the next one to use the data in CoDa and develop new research ideas. So in short, we hope you use CoDa and find it useful. Though we've spent more than 5 years on building CoDa, there's still something that needs to be done in the future. For example, we aim to keep CoDa up to date with published literature, and we plan to implement a method for researchers to annotate and report their own now results with the field. And we also intended to expand the Databank to include studies using different paradigms like trust game, dictator game, ultimatum bargain game, stack hunt, and other coordination games. Of course, more languages, as mentioned before. Russian might be the next one. For the quality control, we did our best to reduce human errors during the coding process. And we also assessed the inter-rater agreement on most of the variables. But still, there are some errors. And yeah, so please notify us if you spot an error in the annotation of a study. Here, I will leave the time for Daniel to talk more about the future visions of CoDa and share with us some concluding remarks for today's talk on the Cooperation Databank.
Okay, thank you, Suzanne. And you can see my slides now?
Yeah.
Yeah, great, thanks. Okay, so that gives you an idea of some of the functions I think you can use when you go to the research platform, and what, this kind of, large sample of machine readable publications allow you to do within a specific literature. I think I want to just raise 3 additional things that we're thinking about doing for the future with this resource. The first is, with the kind of data that we have now and the way that we've represented it, we are interested in creating a method whereby people can publish meta-analyses that are updated based on new information. So if scientists did coordinate with each other on a machine readable way of, a standardized machine readable way of publishing their studies, that means machines can be built to kind of continually monitor the literature as the literature expands and use those data to feed back into a paper that is written as a summary on that body of research. So we already have kind of a proof of concept that this is possible with our own data. If you go to the Cooperation Databank website, you'll see that we have a living reviews section. And we have right now 3 different living reviews. I'm going to just draw your attention to one of them. But a living review basically is a document that would be updated and change over time with the addition of new studies. What we have right now basically are reviews that are very much descriptive of descriptive of the studies contained within the databank. This specific story monitors, for example, how research in this area has changed over time. How did the methods change? How did the samples change? And this might be of interest to researchers operating within this area. There's a lot of information here, but I just want to draw your attention to maybe a couple of them. Let me see. For example, here, these are figures that basically, in kind of computer science terms, they're a query over the knowledge graph that extracts information that you're looking for and plots it in a figure. In this figure, we can look at what it's plotting is the percentage of studies for each year that involved a dyad versus a larger group in the social dilemma. And what you can see here is a trend over time from 1958 to 2018. The early years were studying primarily dyads interacting in a laboratory. But as time progressed, people started to look at groups of 3, 4, 5 or more participants interacting in a public goods dilemma. In this area of research, you can also just remove that information. And I might also be interested in the use of deception. In this area of research, it's a bit of a tense, I think, debate around whether or not people should use deception in the experiments that people do. And what you can see here, these are the percentage of studies recorded within the databank that have been indicated as having used deception versus not used deception. And as you can see, there has been a very steady decline in the percentage of studies that have been indicated as using deception over time. And so you can, these kind of figures can very kind of quickly convey to researchers operating within an area what the trends are or what they have been over time. And this figure that you're looking at now would be updated based on, an additional so many studies added, or even just a single study added to the pool of studies. So these figures are continually monitoring the literature over time. Here's another figure where I'm showing sample sizes. And this might be interesting for all of us who might not be outside of cooperation research specifically. But while there has been kind of a small increase in sample size over time, unfortunately, it's probably quite small still. The average sample size of a study that was conducted in 2016 was 162 people. Now, that might be bigger than in 1967, where you had 99 people. Of course, there's a lot that can determine what a sample size should be, but you would hope that this would be increasing over time and that it would continue to increase. Now, I just want to say our next project is attempting to, what we haven't done yet, is really realize this in terms of meta-analysis. We are able to do instant kind of on-demand meta-analyses with our data using the platform that we created, but what we want to be able to do is to be able to write a report like this, have it on the internet where you forward perhaps a hypothesis, you kind of specify your meta-analytic model, and then there's an output that you use to infer or to make some conclusion regarding your hypothesis. And we would like to be able to create a living document that would be continually kind of absorbing new studies as they come out. And, those would be integrated into the analysis that people would use to evaluate the hypothesis. And as the data might shift and change, and perhaps the conclusions would as well, in terms of what you would think, in terms of your judgment you would make about that hypothesis, you would see that in the report itself. And so that's one thing that we're hoping to do. Another thing that we'd like to do is right now, all of these studies are basically on social dilemmas or situations where people are experiencing a conflict of interest with one another. Theory within the social behavioral sciences suggests that as you change that incentive structure, where there is perhaps no conflict of interest, but just purely corresponding interests, in a situation like that, you have a different profile of predictors, of things that influence how people behave in a situation like that versus a situation like social dilemmas. And so expanding the study of cooperation beyond just these kind of conflict of interest situations, I think would be really important in better understanding how the psychology underlying people's decisions and behaviors might change moving from one situation to the next. And the last point I want to make as kind of a future enhancement to what we currently have, these are all the variables we have coded for and measured the relationship they have with cooperation. So I think Suzanne brought your attention to this bubble of the many different personality variables that have been studied in relation to cooperation. There's a lot of them. And we can do a meta-analysis with our platform on each one of these and how they relate to cooperation. But what we don't have in the current platform are the relationships between these variables. So what is the relationship between cognitive ability and extroversion, or extroversion and social value orientation, or envy and sadism? And so far, we did that pragmatically because we felt we're just kind of overwhelmed with information. And we wanted to focus particularly on predicting cooperation. But there could be immense benefits of having these kind of off-diagonal relationships amongst each other, the relationships amongst these variables, because I think one thing that we can do with these data are apply kind of machine learning techniques to kind of look across all the associations within these variables. And I think the team that we're working with in artificial intelligence, computer science, are excited about the potential of using machine learning over such data to be able to generate new hypotheses that scientists can test in future studies. And I think to be able to really realize an ability to do that, we need to have these associations between these variables. And so, yeah, perhaps this would be another big major project kind of stemming from what we currently have. But I think with that, let's end there and kind of open the floor where you can ask Suzanne and I questions, and we're happy to answer them. And thank you very much for this opportunity.
It's brilliant. Thank you both, Daniel and Suzanne, very much for this brilliant talk. And I think it's really a valuable and informative platform for many of us who is interested, maybe not interested in cooperation studies, but in general, I think this is a great resource. And so are there any questions from the audience to both Daniel and Suzanne, perhaps? You can either type your questions in the chat or just speak by unmuting yourselves. There is a question now in the chat, so thanks for the great talk. One thing I'm also interested in is the algorithm that is used to code or filter or select the cooperation papers. I feel it will be really useful if that algorithm can be generated to other psychological or social topics. So maybe if you have ever the plan to also write the algorithms behind the CoDa database.
Dan, would you like to respond to that? I think we have a research assistant, who is currently working on it.
Yes, well, what was it, 5 or 6 years ago now that we started our search, and we did kind of what you would probably do to search for studies, going to different kind of portals like Google Scholar or EBSCOhost or different platforms to search for studies, and then entering keywords and extracting information just as you would for a normal meta-analysis. But that said, there are algorithms indeed being developed to kind of make searches for specific topics. And we're working with a team in Utrecht where we have already replicated what we did 5 or 6 years ago. And they are designing an algorithm for us to be able to automatically, say every month, search the literature again and output studies for us that can be coded and included in the Databank. And so that process will be automated, hopefully within the next month or two. And yeah, we would want to make that available for everybody. Well, this is a community that's, very valuing open science, and well, we do as well. And I guess the process of coding, though, the papers, is basically done by experts and by hand right now. And I think we are still some distance from being able to automate that process. I will, if we could realize it in my lifetime, it would be incredible. But I think we're still a distance from that.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And this is also one of my questions I had during your second part of the talk. So the future directions. So when you are considering new publications in your methods like domain as a function of time, the one that you presented at the very last. So would you also use these semi-automated methods to include new papers, or also just maybe manually for now?
Oh, it's already automated.
Oh yeah, okay.
It's already automated.
That's great.
Those figures will update
every
midnight.
Okay.
Every
it's brilliant. Yeah,
so,
that's very nice. Yeah.
It's going to happen. I think, within a year, we're going to have a living meta-analytic review written and published on our website.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes.
Brilliant. Yeah, great. Amazing. Thank you. Are there any other questions? There's another one from the chat. I'm curious about how do you convince the founders to support this project? I have a feeling that most founders interested in innovative and groundbreaking projects like ERC, high-risk, high-gain, for example, but not meta-analysis, which is typically perceived as a little bit labor-intensive, or maybe not so much exciting. Sorry about that. But this is quite honest question, frankly.
Yeah, I think, well, this is still the question for you, Dan. Like, how can you get this ERC starting ground 5 years ago?
Well, yeah, I mean, I got 1.5 million euros, where part of this was, this was part of that project. So, I mean, meta-analysis, the process is labor intense indeed. I mean, we have for our field made it easy. What took me 3 years to do for a single meta-analysis now takes you 3 minutes. And that is going to intensely speed up the process of science. And it's also going to tie the hands of scientists in a way that they cannot selectively cite papers on a given topic when you present to them the whole body of literature on a figure where they can see, oh, these studies found a negative effect and these studies found a positive one. And the reviewers can see that information. And so I think, this kind of approach to looking at and consuming research has real meaningful consequences for enhancing the quality of scientific practices and improving scientific practices. And it also does well in terms of putting more pressure on the gas in terms of making it speed up And so, yeah, if somebody says meta-analysis is boring, well, it is to do the process of one, but it's incredibly rewarding when you're done for you and the field. So, and I think a lot of people recognize that.
Yeah, and I also have something to respond to the question, because I remember like when I was applying for the PhD position in our lab, Dan shared with me a brief introduction of the Cooperation Databank project. And generally, I was really impressed by the several outstanding benefits that this databank could probably provide to the field. And I also prepared for a slide. So actually, I think, yeah, when we are applying for the fundings, of course, I mean, the reviewers can see from like what benefits your project can provide with us. Not only meta-analysis itself, like we can achieve all the benefits and functions that a traditional meta-analysis can have, but we also have some unique benefits out of the CoDa, like improving the confidence and its the speed and efficiency, and also it allows us to replicate and reproduce meta-analysis. Also, we help to estimate the publication bias. So I think this also answers the question Chuan Peng asked a little bit.
Yeah, this is remarkable. And I guess in terms of the contribution, there's no doubt that it's really valuable and for the community, both inside and outside cooperation studies. Perhaps a related question is like this, because now your first ERC is finished, and there's this CoDa as the benchmark outcome is really brilliant. But maybe just looking back when you were applying for this grant. So I'm asking because many of us are early career researchers. Not only the topic is interesting, and we also some of them we are in the need of applying for our own grants. So the question is, back then, what was the risk? So the ERC, high risk, high gain part, what was the risk that you identified? And was it really the case? So when you are looking back the past 3, 4, 5 years, and did you actually have also some new risks that you didn't anticipate, but that actually happened during the project?
Well, the biggest risk here was being able to pull together a team of people with the diverse skill sets required to produce what you just saw and experience. I mean, and so working with computer scientists, but also a really competent team of experts able to kind of work with, the focus of creating the data itself, but then also a team that has the skill sets in R and the computation and also the background knowledge in meta-analysis. I mean, of course, I have that as well, but I mean, it took quite, and then to get all of those people together and working on a single goal. It was very difficult to hire someone in computer science because most of the best talent goes into industry. And then if they don't really want to work with a psychology group. I'm from psychology. And so I was very lucky because my university has a top shelf AI group in knowledge representation. And I formed a relationship with a full professor there, and we hired somebody who came on and helped us with our project for 2 years. And I didn't anticipate that challenge, but I was very lucky to be able to have solved it. But, and I don't think anybody who made the decision to fund my grant really realized the hurdle I faced there. I didn't at the time. But yeah, it all came together primarily because this team with diverse skill sets came together and they worked together, and the core team of developers as well. There's all these people here that have helped us. But yeah, that's my answer.
Very insightful. Yeah, indeed. Yeah. And perhaps then, Shuxian, do you have any reflection on this? So how do you feel from a bottom-up perspective that you have been collaborating with people from really different backgrounds? Muted. Sorry, you're muted. Shuxian? Yeah.
Basically, I came here 2 years ago and joined the process, which we already start the annotation of the studies. So I'm mainly working on postdoc and PhD students who are working on coding the variables and annotate the independent variables. So I didn't have too much chance to work with the computer scientists. So you also see from the slide that we are a big team. So I'm like a small part of it, but I'm very proud of it. And I do have some experience like working with domain experts from other cultures and from other countries, because we have 3 languages like Chinese. Of course, I need to code for them. And also we met Japanese researchers. And also in the future, we plan to include Russian documents. And I will be the one to train the potential coder and to work with her to include studies in the Databank. So from my side, I have more experience working with domain experts, but still I learned a lot during the process working with people from different cultural backgrounds. And, it's very beneficial for me, at least.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that experience. Brilliant.
And in the end,
sure.
Actually, I have a question for Dan, because, well, as I said, I was really impressed by the project introduction 2 years ago. And actually one of the benefits in that listed in that document is the broad relevance and market value of the Cooperation Databank. And this type of institution actually can be adopted for any topic in science and to achieve the same benefits of CoDa. So I wonder, well, this might be interesting, especially for the publishing companies and to centralize the specific topics of studies. I wonder whether this is also part of our future vision, and to what extent do you think the companies will be willing to do so? And do you see any challenges here for these type of institutions to be adopted by the companies?
Yeah, so we've thought about this, and actually I have a grant under review. I mean, I could receive the outcome today that would be designed towards maybe hiring computer scientists and working towards a product that we could offer to like a publishing company. I mean, that would basically, the way I would see this product would be, maybe one of you is in the area of attitudes and health behavior, and you want to bring all of this information and be able to have a platform like we have here for cooperation research. And the product we would offer would be guiding you towards setting up a structure of making that possible. Identifying what your ontology is, guiding you towards, coding the information in a way that then users can use it with the platform we've created. And, I think we're probably quite some distance from making that a reality. And I don't think, probably because I am a basic scientist, and I don't think I have a very strong interest in the content of what we do. So I want to spend the rest of my life trying to understand human cooperation and not necessarily transforming the publishing industry. So, at some point I will be kind of letting off the gas myself in this way. I think what we want to at least do to make a good faith effort to generalize what we've done to other fields and to kind of open that door for them. to allow them to achieve what we have achieved. And I think that will offer immense benefits that will trickle throughout kind of the social sciences, let's say at least. And I would be happy with that. I do believe like the data, the way that it's represented, we didn't talk about this, but it's living on the web. Now, all of this information, and it would just be there for another platform to soak it up and to use it in any which way it wants to. And I think, Elsevier, they pump millions of dollars into innovating technology like this. And if they really wanted to, they could do something much more sophisticated and advanced than we ever did in 5 years. And, we're not going to compete with that, and nor do I want to. If anything, we hopefully have gotten their attention and be like, oh, wow, that's pretty cool. That's maybe something we should invest in, and then they try to realize it at scale. And if they were to do something like that, and we played a small footnote in their kind of story of developing that technology, I would be very happy with that.
Thank you.
All right, thanks for the questions and then the answers. Are there any more questions from the audience? There's one more from the chat. Thanks for sharing. The CoDa project is so impressive. I noticed that we can perform effect size computation and meta regression directly from the CoDa website. So is it possible to conduct other kinds of meta-analysis, such as structural equation modeling and hierarchical linear modeling in this sense?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So currently we don't offer the option for structural equation modeling, but actually you can download the raw data set and to run it like on your own computer using the R package. And also for hierarchical linear modeling, do you mean multi-level model? Like, because we do offer the multi-level options here because we have 3 clusters like study, paper, and also the country. But the thing is, we didn't have a cluster to figure out the dependence between effect sizes. But we do code it for this variable, which you can find whether within a study, it's applied within participants design or between participants design. So, I mean, still you can download the data and use this variable to run the multi-level regression and to also consider the dependence between effect sizes.
And I'll just add, I mean, we are kind of mindful in thinking about adding new analytic options, basically. I think one that is on the nearest on the horizon is machine learning and metaforest. I think we'll have an option soon, mostly because we also know the author of that R package, and they want to include it here. And I would love to see that, because I think also just having a brute kind of exploratory approach to kind of looking for associations, particularly with, for example, the things which predict effect sizes. You can build very complex moderator models with the platform. Suzanne just showed you, I mean, there's like hundreds of variables, but maybe machine learning can help, very quickly extract the ones that you can see are important, or at least within the data set.
Yeah.
Great. Are there any more questions from the audience? So I actually have another question regarding the quality control. So I'm sure the quality control in terms of the coding was done pretty careful, but I was just wondering, how was the quality control of the studies that was collected? So the studies themselves. So the question was rooted in the fact that so many of the studies, even though some of them, they are using the same paradigm, but perhaps their original hypothesis was different in the beginning. So for example, some of them, they might be interested in cooperation, but some others might be like theory of mind, strategic interaction, or like social influence per se, social learning, to see like this, how social actions evolve over time. So how did you deal with that challenge?
If I got you correctly, you mean people use the same paradigm, but because of different hypotheses, right? Actually, we have a quite like a structured and clear definition of what a social dilemma is. So every study that are applying a social dilemma paradigm, we will include this and code for all the structural features, which is the like study design of the social dilemma, and to capture the heterogeneity between the social dilemmas that has been like conducted in different studies. And then like according to your description, will be different independent variables, and we code for the independent variables and then to do the analysis. So we don't think that we will like really mix things and include studies that are not social dilemmas, because we have the clear definition and structure to follow. So did I answer your question?
Maybe also I'd just add, because I think listening to you, were you suggesting that the quality of a study would differ depending on the kind of hypothesis the researcher had?
I guess I wasn't clear enough. This question is twofold. The one is that if they use the same paradigm, but their hypothesis might differ. So the second aspect is that, so if they have the same hypothesis, the identical hypothesis or the paradigm, under the paradigm, but some of them might, so it might be the fact that they did not control very well in a laboratory environment, right, compared to some others. So there's two aspects. I mixed that up at the beginning. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I can get your point here, because you were mentioning laboratory experiments and maybe other types of experimental settings. So actually we have a variable here to capture this property, which is we include a variable coding for online study, lab experiments, and field experiment, field study, and observe a natural study. So here we think if you really care about, like, I only want to include studies that has been done in the lab with very strict control, you could filter the studies by this variable and only include the lab experiment. And in terms of the hypothesis, yeah, Dan, do you have anything to respond to that?
You know, we didn't code what theories people were using or what if they had a hypothesis or not. A lot of this work in this area is a-theoretical, actually. It's interesting. If you really apply a strict kind of a metric in thinking of what a theory is and are you guided by a theory or not, I would say probably 80% of this work would fail that, you know, test over the history of the field. I think it's becoming better, but that's one thing that I've learned from this field, and I value theory a lot. So I mean, like, that irks me and it irritates me, but like it's a reality. But like, yeah, I think all we have is some information about just variability and the actual kind of paradigm itself that people can control for. And we did start doing some work with the computer scientist on text analysis to kind of identify theories and predictions made within papers. And that kind of stopped or kind of put on pause for a moment. But it could be that we could get some really meaningful information from those analyses. Particularly, I was interested in publication bias. You know, so all studies on social identity find one thing, but studies that never mentioned social identity found something different, you know? And then it would just be kind of a community of people just sharing information that's feeding into their belief system. And you see when you step outside of that kind of bubble, there's a literature out there on the same exact thing that shows you a different conclusion. And I think, with the kind of way that we've represented this information, if we could extract that information from the studies and how the studies vary based on even just citations, TOEFL, the kind of a leading citation for social identity or something. Did the paper cite that or not? And kind of looking. So I think there is some interesting directions to go kind of in the area that you just raised some questions about.
Yeah. That's a good indicator, I believe. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Also, this theory is very important. I guess nowadays it's getting more and more appreciated in the field. Great. And Chuanpeng, I guess you had a question. You raised your hand and then turned on your camera. So please go ahead.
Yes. I'm Chuanpeng Hu, and I have one question about the quality control too. So in psychology recently, people start to emphasize the quality of measurement. So I think in one paper, I think it's by Echo and Flake. So they have like the jingle fallacy and the jungle fallacy. That means, for example, the same latent variable, they are measured in two different questionnaires, because the two questionnaires have two different names. So we assume they are measuring two different latent variables. Another fallacy is that actually there are different latent variable or trait, but we use them to, we measure them with a similar name. For example, a question with similar name. So we assume that they are similar latent variable. So I'm wondering, in your meta-analysis, have you checked this part, for example?
For
you have so many variables. Yeah.
Yes, for us, I think it's like the measurements, researchers are using different measurements to measure different variables. And this is more related to the independent variables, which has been included in our data bank, like especially like a personality traits. There are many different kind of scales or measurements. Unfortunately, we didn't really consider these type of questions, but we do, when we were annotating the studies and the independent variables, we included one variable, like we coded for which scale is used in this specific study. So we have this information here, and we have the name of the scale, and we have information about the scale. But yeah, I think we have this information, and there's something that maybe people in the future could come and collaborate with us to look specifically into these questions in the future. And in terms of the dependent variables, given that we have a clear structure and we measure the cooperation by games, not the measurements, so it's not a problem for our outcome variables in CoDa.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, Dan, do you have anything to?
Yeah, I'm just going to share just this, this is a paper, for example, that we did on meta-analyses on different personality traits. These are all meta-analysis, a separate meta-analysis for, each topic, like social value orientation, guilt proneness, honesty, humility. These are just the estimates. And I think the question you raise a bit is just, when you approach doing analyses with our research platform, the problems you raised are real ones and important ones. And with the data bank, the way it is now, we don't answer that question, because, for example, all of all of these could be represented by one or two latent factors. And people are just doing research on these different topics. That's a possibility. Now, these are everything that anybody has looked at repeatedly, okay? So, maybe yourself as a researcher, you think, well, altruism and the 5-factor model of agreeableness are really just the same thing, And, what we should do is really fold those into one construct and trust propensity and maybe is separate, but concern for others and inequality aversion and honesty, humility are the same thing. I think there is, there is still a lot of work to be done to kind of, and this is what personality research has largely been doing for the last 60 years. I think trying to solve this problem. You know, is it a 2-factor model or a 5-factor model or a 6-factor model or 20-factor model? And, you know, right now our platform is agnostic about that. And we just say, okay, we did work with a personality researcher to develop even these concepts and just say, well, this is how we define concern for others. And we start associating scales that people used, and actually we give it a different label than what people did in 1966 and 1978 and 1988. And we say, this fits our definition of what this construct is. But I would say the good work isn't done yet to kind of really result at, you know, a model that cuts nature at its joints. And we would say, this is the model. You know, you really don't want to get anything more, breaking factors down into anything more specific. And there's really nothing else above each one of the separate factors. So yeah, it's an issue that, you know, and actually with our platform, I'll just end by saying with our platform, if you have a theory that concern for others and honesty, humility should be one factor, you can do a meta-analysis where you combine them all together. That's your decision as a researcher. And so if there's 80 studies here and there's 49 studies here, you can do a meta-analysis with 129 studies or effect sizes. And that can be the pool of studies you started analyzing. So there's a lot of room for yourself as a researcher to come with your own theoretical model, impose it on the data, and let it guide your choice of analytic model. I'll end with that.
Yeah, that's actually a very good suggestion to have a theory-driven approach so that we could look at the data a little bit differently from the perspective based on the theory. Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. So I guess it's now over 1 hour, nearly 1.5 hours. No questions in the chat. And I guess this is for today. Let's thank again both Daniel and Shuxian. It's really brilliant and informative. I learned a lot, and wish the project, the future, the best, and wish your consolidator grant also the best. And thank everyone for participating. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Lei.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.